Hello there guys, this is Eli G. Brown / Eli G. Brony, and welcome to another classic LEGO Bionicle review, which is probably the last one that I'm going to do for a while, mostly because I don't have any plans, at least not any near future plans, to look over those vehicle sets that came out in 2010, and I also noticed this is a little bended a bit, but anyway, I am now looking over one of the biggest and most sought-out sets released in Bionicle. This is the Toa Motunui set. Now the reason why I am filming here over in my closet instead of the usual studio is because this figure is too tall to fit into my usual studio, so I have to do it right here. I will say I actually am not too pleased with how the footage looks right now, but that's just me anyway. I'm not quite sure if I'm going to be able to get the whole figure into the whole video. But I'm going to do the best that I can to review this figure right here. So this is a very tall, large-scale version of Motunui in his Toa form on Bara Magna. Not quite sure if this is supposed to represent a larger version of Motunui, like another large version, like he somehow made himself a lot bigger sometime on Bara Magna, or if this is a form that he could have taken on while he was on Bara Magna. But he does not do so at any point in the storyline. So, as to whether or not this is supposed to be a larger form of Motunui or just a large-scale version of the form they already took on, I honestly am not quite so sure. But to me, this looks like the form that he could have taken on in the Matoran universe. Like, this would have been the form that he could have taken on. Like maybe if he was battling against Makuta, this could have been the final form that he could take on when facing off against his evil brother. I mean, I know that they do have an epic final battle in 2010, but I personally feel like this is the form that he could have taken on. You know, like when facing off against Makuta. Like maybe Motunui manages, he takes on this form and gets back into the Great Spirit Robot, and he faces off against Makuta, who is still inside of the robot, but he briefly abandons the control area where he basically becomes the robot, and just faces off against Motunui. Well, I'm not quite sure as to where exactly they'd be able to do that sort of battle and such, you know, like where exactly in the Great Spirit Robot Makuta was able to take control, but I personally think that this would have worked out much more epic for a final battle. I am also kind of wondering if this form of Motunui takes some elements or some appearances from the Great Spirit Robot, because I've been kind of doing a bit of comparisons, and other than all of these extra armor pieces, as well as the mask, I kind of feel like this could in fact be a representation of the Great Spirit Robot, even though the Great Spirit Robot was being taken over and under control of Makuta as of the time that this part of the story was taking place on. Now, this figure actually features mostly parts that we have had before. Like all sorts of different key orange parts, and standard yellow parts, and a few silver parts, and a few gray and black parts, as well as red and blue as far as the pins go. But some people usually prefer to ignore those. And the funny thing here is that he has 2 of the life counters on his back. I'm not quite sure what is up with that, but he's got 2 of them right there. Now, one of the biggest deals about this set right here would be the gold Kanohi Ignica. This one. Yep. This is a legitimate Kanohi Ignica in pearl gold. If you looked at my review on the custom Ignica that I got off of Shapeways, you would probably know how I mentioned that it did not work as well as the original gold Kanohi Ignica. So I got this one off of eBay, and speaking of which, the entire figure of my Toa Motunui was actually brick-linked, along with a combination of a few parts that I already had in my parts drawer, which you actually can see in the background. So, not quite sure how much money in total it costed me to get this entire figure built. Took me quite a few orders to get up, and the mask alone cost me about $50. Now, normally they would cost about, well, the gold mask would cost about $75 or something. Although the reason why it was down to $50 was because, well, I don't think that you can see it on camera, but if you look at it really closely, you can see that there are a few nicks on the mask from the previous owner use. And I'm not going to go into all that detail right there because it mostly looks fantastic. Certainly acceptable, if I do say so myself. So, anyway, I think that I've said just about everything that I can regarding Toa Motunui. It certainly is great to have gotten this mask, well, the mask, and the figure itself, in general, managing to get this as part of my collection. Alright, so, I think that pretty much wraps up, at least for the time being, the classic LEGO Bionicle reviews, because I have looked over almost every Bionicle set that ever came out, both old and new. Well, old as in, I've had them already since they came out, and new as in, I had just recently gotten them, as I didn't before. I may look over those large vehicle sets, and I may also finish off Generation 2. As far as if we ever get a Generation 3 is concerned, I actually don't have plans on doing any Generation 3 set reviews, or even purchasing any Generation 3 sets, if we ever get them. There are some people online that are saying maybe we could get minifigures for Generation 3, and that actually doesn't sound like a bad idea. But I'm gonna leave that up to a new generation of kids to enjoy a third generation of, well, a Bionicle, if we ever get a third generation. So, thank you so much for watching, and I will see you again when I do a couple of mock videos. So, bye for now.